All right, we are live for a Sunday midday RTD Q&A, and I'm excited to have a first-time visitor to the channel, Mr. Frank Walker from Silver Report Uncut in the building. So I'm excited to be able to connect with him and have him join the community and share his insights as well as analysis and just thoughts and solutions and strategies for how to navigate these troubled waters. So Frank, thank you for taking time to join us here on RTD Q&A.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. So I appreciate you for taking time. And so I actually was watching one of your videos. I think it was probably earlier in the week, and you made a lot of sense. And of course, all your videos are very informative. So I'm like, let me go and reach out to him and see if he can join us and share some of his insights with the community over here as well. So of course, I saw in the chat there, because we are streaming live, a couple of people say they're subscribed to you, so they're excited for this. So it should be a good time to connect with you here as well. And so I titled this show, The Dismantling of America. Let's talk about that, because America's no longer United States of America is no longer the America that we all grew up in. Especially, I know my end as well. I'm assuming you're the same way, and it's changing deliberately. And I want to touch on some of the things that you want to focus on. So, I guess what comes to mind when you hear the words "dismantling of America"? What are some things that jumps out to you right away?
Oy, that's crazy, because like the most relevant things to that topic you can't even talk about anymore these days, because people behind it all seem to be in control of the means of communication.
Yeah.
And and that's what America's about, right? Freedom. And slowly we're losing those freedoms. And the biggest thing is that we're losing our economic freedom. We're losing our ability to stop this, and before anybody knows it, because there's a lot of people who still think that what's happening in America is like some theory. But the point is that they are so aggressive with their economic attacks going on against the people that before everyone wakes up to what's going on, they won't be able to afford to do anything about it, because we'll already be in the system where, it's going to be, my wife the other day was looking at gas prices, and she said, oh, they went up 10 cents. I'm thinking, I wouldn't be surprised if we see $7 a gallon gas at some point here before long, the way they're going with the money printing. And a whole new world, we might see everything cost a fortune before longer.
Right. I do agree. And so one of the things I want to definitely mention, because there's a thought came to my mind today, is just the attack against privacy as well as property rights. And so I think that's a major part of the equation for the orchestrators of this entire experience we're all having. And so I've come up with so many code words to try to go around the algorithms as best I can rather. But privacy rights as well as just property rights. I think that's majorly under attack now. And I actually read an article, I'm not sure if you had a chance to touch on it yet, but about in Berlin, because of the economic conditions, the lockdowns and loss of jobs, the people are actually protesting that the government steps in and remove the rights of the landlords and give them free rent and free this and free that, whatever. So we got the moratoriums and the forbearances here. So that's going to hurt landlords. I mean, that's property that's going to be confiscated from somebody. Somebody's losing in that deal. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that it would be very, very damaging for the housing market. But, I think that you got to start at point A, is that when you hear all these articles and you hear all these people talking, they keep saying like, this particular crisis happened to us, and that's what's causing the recession. That's what's causing the economic difficulties. That's why we need the support. That's why we need the stimulus. That's why we need the moratoriums on evictions. And they're like all blaming it on this like outside event that's happening to us, but that's not really the case.
Right.
It's really, if you look at the place by place geographically around the world, some places are doing phenomenal. Some places their housing market's doing phenomenal. Their job market's doing phenomenal. They're having an economic boom right now because they took an entirely different road. Now in Germany, they took a really rough road, and it's not over for them. I think that the goal, you hear about that, you'll own nothing and
be happy with it.
That we're already along that process right now, and they're not really focusing on like all industry. They're focusing on individual property owners, individual business owners, small business owners, not so much the big corporations. And so, of course, landlords are a big part of that. And you got to think they have businesses too. They have loans too. A big thing that was happening between 2018 leading up right into this crisis is that most of the housing market activity was house flippers. And so to do this, there was a lot using cash, but for the most part, they're taking out loans to do this. they're taking out loans, they're either fixing the house and, a lot of the stuff. And then they get caught when the music stops. And you got a lot of people that are in trouble. And the way they're kind of like wooing the poor right now. And they're wooing the people who don't understand economic principles. And they're just kind of have this idea that you could just detach everything from its gravitational pull and things will be okay. But, without, it's a system that operates and it's found its own way to operate as a free market. And then all of a sudden they hit the brakes and change everything to a controlled market. And I just think that it's a disaster. It's a disaster moving forward, and it's intentional because they don't want these people to own property. When they lose it, who are they going to lose it to? They're going to lose it to the likes of the JP Morgans of the world, or over there Deutsche Bank in Germany, or a lot of the big banks, and they're going to really clean up and make a fortune in the loss of all of this private property. It's not going to be everybody that loses all of their property either, or else Jeff Bezos and Mr. B, I don't even want to say his name because that'll get you taken away too.
Understandable.
But they've been gobbling up land, buying up properties, buying up businesses, buying up fake meat companies, nuclear power companies. They're obviously preparing to hold on to their companies and to profit from all of this. So it's really the little guy that's in trouble. And because there's so many people that have been put into a horrible economic situation by these controllers, now they're being sold this story that this is why you have pain, because of these greedy capitalists, because of these greedy business owners. They don't care. They're not willing to pay a living wage. And that's not really the case, is it? Because you have also new money coming into the system for some people, paying them not to work. You have money coming in that's, kind of subsidizing and therefore inflating our market values on wages. And all of it is misrepresenting the nature of our problem. I think that, especially in the United States, that we actually were on our way to having better economic activity. Before this started, I'm not sure if I was so happy with the response to this whole thing monetarily at all. Even from the beginning a few years ago, it's not like it changed just because the administration changes. Right. But it just, the whole money printing, the excess stimulus, this idea that you can just create an unlimited supply of a currency, and that's the nightmare that's going to be facing the poor. They better not worry about their rent. They better worry about when the rent costs $4,000 a month to live in the middle of hell. Right. And,
all right. So to piggyback on that, the whole idea of, as I mentioned, property rights, that's one of the big things I'm trying to focus on now, because we're being transitioned intentionally into a digital atmosphere to where property will be questioned, because what is property? It's transitioning from just the tangible realm of being able to actually hold and feel something. We're heavy precious metals individuals here. And so we're being transitioned into a digital atmosphere where people are extremely excited about owning something that's not tangible in nature. It's non-fungible tokens and stuff like that. And I think my personal opinion about that is that it's deliberately designed to help execute the Great Reset. Because how can you pull off the greatest heist in humanity, such as this one, where they're actually taking from us physical stuff? They're buying up everything behind the scenes so they can own everything and then tell us we'll be happy by owning nothing. Like, that doesn't make sense. So they're deliberately trying to break America and the world down to our bare knuckles, to where we come begging for whatever type of approach. And a lot of it has to do with, property rights, I think, at the end of the day. And so I want to actually share with you, I actually found that article just for a quick second. Let me put it on my screen here. And so it's something that caught my attention, because I think we're going to hear more of that, especially here in the U.S. as we roll forward when it comes to all this landlord stuff, apartments, as more people come in with suggestions on how to further help out, the poor. It says renters in Berlin have a radical plan to seize apartments from landlords and are set to force a referendum that could revolutionize the battle for fair rent. So think about the word. What is fair rent to you? Like, how do you define fair rent? How would you define fair rent?
Yeah, I just really think that a lot of these news agencies, what they're doing is that they're painting a story that's only half true. It's like, this is not the voice of the renter.
Right.
This is not the voice of the renter. This is the voice, like you said, of the reset. And they're using these news agencies, they call them, to try to paint this story like renters are all out. Like there could be a movement in our nation where there's like 18 people who are interested in it. And if the news wants to push the story, they will put the camera right in their face. And that's the only story you'll hear. And there could be millions of people left out who don't get a voice. In regards to, like you said, you mentioned even the headline, it's they're talking about seizing these apartments from them. And that is exactly the mission. That's the goal. And so fair rent to them, obviously, is that it doesn't go to them at all. Right. And, when the WEF said that you will rent everything you use, you will rent everything you use. And so if you don't own anything, then obviously we're going to be renting it from them.
Yeah. And they try to sell it with the fact that it alleviates the burden and concerns of you having to maintain it. You don't want to have the hassle of that. You want to be able to enjoy your life. We're going to give you a universal basic allowance. So just go pursue your dreams and all the selling points or whatnot. So it's very sad, but it's reality. And unfortunately, a lot of people are still not awake to the reality, but it's here and we're in the midst of it. And I want to talk about the idea of free speech, as you hinted at earlier. And so now there's a whole new label for people who speak contrary to their narrative. It's called misinformation. And so Frank, I imagine you're probably guilty of misinformation according to their standards, just like I would be as well. But they're rebranding those who speak truth, because what is truth now if they control the entire narrative? It goes against what they want for us to share with the world. So how do you think yourself included, how do you try to get around? How are you trying to get around this? Like, what are you doing? Anything different to try to reach people while there's still time, while you still have the opportunity to do so?
Okay, I just wanted to first touch on the fact that I don't think we're losing this.
Okay.
I don't think we're currently losing because they're getting so authoritarian, because they're really ratcheting up. They're just taking down sites, they're taking down channels, they're taking down different people. And if we were losing the information battle, then they wouldn't need to do that and take it to such extremes, because they already acknowledge they get together over there at Davos and they plan all of this. They plan this whole scenario. They plan how you're going to deal with a government if they don't agree with what you're saying. And, they plan all of this. And part of that plan was that we don't want to go too hard on information, because that only makes people search for it harder. But as you can tell, they are going very hard. They're going full steam. So obviously they're nervous. They feel like they're losing it. But some of the excellent things that have been created recently, and we talked about Web3 applications that and the blockchain in general is like is information database. It doesn't all need to be cryptocurrency. And there's like programs like LBRY, which have been created, which exist on the blockchain. And you would essentially put your content onto the blockchain and it can't be removed, because it's present in computers all over the world, not held by a centralized platform like Rumble or the other ones. I don't want to mention their name. Because they all hold them in a database. And so therefore they could easily just clean up their system. But this one is held by computers all over the world, and it's Web3. So, and it's so powerful. I think that's actually, I talked to the CEO and he was thinking that I was pretty much implying the SEC is suing you for LBC, the token you use, because they are secretly trying to take down your whole program. And he didn't want to go that far. He was just kind of trying to be optimistic. But that's how it is these days, is that they know that freedom is dangerous to people who are seeking to eliminate privacy. And that's censorship free on there. It's crazy, because if you even talk about the word free speech, sometimes they'll demonetize you. And that's crazy to live in America, where just the word free speech is considered a naughty word. And I even have members of my own family right now that view freedom of speech as dangerous, and they view it and they connect it in their head as like some sort of hate. And it's like, it's not, it's just the people that are losing, they need to make you hate speech. They need to make you hate information that's not coming from them, to ridicule it. And I think they're really losing out. You look at what's happening in the UK and you see what looks like millions of people out in the street with, tons of different signs that are specifically naming these people, like, we're not going to listen to you anymore. And they're like, oh, it's hundreds of people were in the street, and it's far, far larger than hundreds. And I think that's just the total control on information they have. I think Telegram you mentioned Twitter earlier, but I think Telegram is an excellent program, and I think it's so much better than Twitter because it's not like Twitter at all. You could put like hour-long videos on there. You can put different things like audio files and audio messaging, and you can host your podcast on there, articles, links, and it's just an excellent program because it's also encrypted. And the FBI, the official controllers there, they went to them initially when they invented it and asked them to lower their defenses and their security so that it would be easier for them to go in and pry the information. And so it's been designed, and they asked the person if he would do that, and he said no. And they also tried to shut it down, and it's not an American company. So there's nothing they can do about that. And so that's what makes it so excellent. And whenever you hear a lot of these people that seem to be so connected to everything that's happening in our lives, I call them the controllers because you can't even speak these people's names. It's goodness. Mr. Bill, anyway, he hates it. They hate Telegram. And so obviously it must be good. And they were telling you, oh, well, all these hateful people are using it. And it's not the case. It's just that anybody who goes out and begins to make a lot of sense and people start listening to that are exposing what they are doing, they just exert their force and eliminate them. So programs like Telegram and Odyssey are ones I use all the time. I used to use Parler, but it's kind of the same thing because it's centralized.
When they came back, Parler came back with some new guidelines, some new terms of service, which lets you know that they probably sprinkle a little something in the back door as far as giving those agencies access and permission. But it also plays into just the idea as moving forward. I think the blockchain, if used intentionally for good, is beneficial. But then again, one of my skepticism has been that after having watched this technology over the last couple of years, I witnessed the entities trying to use it for bad. And it happens to be the digital ID stuff that's coming and the past, the participation, certificates, stuff like that. And they're using the blockchain space for that stuff. And it's being funded by governments worldwide. So those are the projects that I'm not too interested in myself. So hopefully people do wake up to the reality that there's options out there. But I want to ask you a question on something because I never got a chance to see from watching your videos where you stand or what your thought was. But there was early this year, around January, an event that occurred. Of course, nobody believed it was what we saw on the screen because we saw the alternative version of it. But there was a small part of the population that thought that there was some good guys in white coats, some patriots that were kind of orchestrating things. They used a certain letter of the alphabet to predict the future events, and that stuff didn't appear to work out quite as well. But there's people who think there's good guys behind the scenes orchestrating things for our benefit. What do you think of that? Are there good guys behind all this, or what do you think?
I think that it's about the people. We're all we have. We're all we have. It's so obvious. If there was good guys behind the scene, where are they? Why didn't they swoop in to rescue us? There was plenty of opportunity and plenty of reason. But there's nobody. Look at how all of these agencies are like totally in lockstep with everything that's going on in the U.S. Like all of a sudden they've taken over just about, and it's not like they just did. They've obviously had control of these, places for quite some time, like these federal agencies even. And the SEC, I just wanted to touch on something interesting is you brought up it's just a shame. It's a shame what's going on. I feel like they have us around the throat right now, and people don't even seem to notice it. There's like some people in our country that don't agree with them, but then they're just like thinking it's going to be just normal. Leave me alone. I just want to go back to, hunting or fishing and doing my little thing. But before you know it, they're going to take over all of the economic structures in this country, and we live in a whole different world. And whatever you think you want to do or you will do, by then it'll be very, very difficult. And you brought up blockchain, and it's interesting that Gary Gensler is now the head of the SEC, and this is how much control these people really have. And because Gary Gensler, he is a favorite of Ethereum. Goldman Sachs just announced it. They wrote like this whole love sonnet for Ethereum as well. Yesterday, they want to get into trading. They say that Bitcoin's done, and they are setting up because he loves Ethereum so much because there's so many decentralized apps that are built on it. And he was the one who talked for hours about digital IDs, about these contracts, smart contracts. And Bitcoin is not anonymous. Ethereum has an unlimited supply, very much like the dollar. And so it's not like the banks are all telling you it's valuable and it's the future and it's better than Bitcoin, because obviously the banks are trying to funnel you there, but the banks are also trying to funnel you into Bitcoin. It is not a bank killer. All the biggest banks are the ones that have been buying Bitcoin, and I believe that they're also behind the drop that we just saw in Bitcoin as well. Like, they're trying to exaggerate the drop and blame Elon, because it does seem a little bit like the system may have turned on Elon recently or something. And everybody's shorting Tesla, and it's like, where did that come from? Because this guy was constantly being promoted to us every day about how great he is, how he's the savior of the world. And all these things seem to be in motion, but they want to funnel us into these surveillance coins, which are not an anonymous currency. They have what it would already do is set up a cashless, completely traceable system where every transaction you've made can be tracked going back for years, and it's all on a public blockchain. So all this is publicly available. Anybody who's determined or is paid to go and research this information could easily track down who you paid, where it was paid to. And the issue that we really, really face is I brought up about, like, on Telegram, about that 3-letter agency, about why it's important because they weren't willing to cooperate with them. And people got this idea like, oh, if you don't do anything wrong, what do you have to worry about? And we're in an age where the definition of what is right and wrong, especially with speech, with your money, is changing so rapidly. We got this idea about money laundering that is about to really open up Pandora's box, because what the government really wants to do is to make sure you have no privacy and there's nothing you can do about it. And they're beefing up the IRS, beefing up all these agencies. I get people on my channel sometimes that come on like, oh, well, you're just against, your taxes, you're this or that. Oh, why would you encourage people to do this or that? And I just think they fail to understand what kind of situation we're in. Before long, they're going to have a cashless society already built around us that we helped build. And I'm an advocate for privacy coins like Monero, Pirate Chain. And really, they're already starting the conversation that if you talk about Monero and these things, the IRS offered
$600,000.
Yeah, $600,000 for anybody who could crack the code on Monero. And if you realize what kind of situation we're in, they couldn't do it.
Yeah,
they couldn't do it. And they're trying to regulate exchanges right now because the KYC is know your customer. Bullion sites have it. That's why sometimes if you're new to a bullion site, it takes you like 7 days to get your first order because they need to get your ID and your information and make sure they check it out with the government and notify the government about how much you're buying. And they're trying to say, oh, you need to notify them of transfers of 10,000. And we all say, oh, that makes sense. But what they really want is to regulate the exchanges so they can get your face tied to just one transaction.
Yeah.
Because then it goes to your wallet. And then all the transactions coming into your wallet, even from anonymous sources, could it potentially be tracked down and traced. And once they get you tied to a number, and like if you want to completely exist off of the blockchain grid, you need to have a wallet with no KYC. You need to have an entry point that's not Coinbase or Binance, where your face is not tied to where your cash turned into crypto. Have it move into that wallet, and all your transactions on that wallet never connect to your Coinbase or your Binance. Not even on a hard day where you're like, I just got to get money in there or take it out there. You got to figure out a way to avoid connecting those two numbers, because once they meet, then they know that's your wallet too.
Let me share something with you real quick. So, like everything you just hinted on within the last 48 hours, I've touched on in my little rants, whatever. So I just posted this. I got to share it with you because I want to take it there, but I'm going to take it there because since you did. But how Bitcoin has been the standard, and it went from a disruptive now to where it's heavily institutionally influential now, because they're setting up all types of financial products behind it to control the price of it, of course. So it's turned into a banker's coin, unfortunately. But then one thing that concerns me is my video I did yesterday was about, how there's a rise of these ransom and cyberware attacks, and they're utilizing these open, visibly verifiable chains to to the mainstream media is really pumping these up, in particular Bitcoin Cash, stuff like that. But then these coins become tainted, and once they become tainted, the worst thing you can do is bring a tainted coin back to your stash, because one apple ruins the whole bunch. And so this video here, I'm trying to highlight, or this little video, I was trying to point out that all Bitcoins are not the same, and all publicly visible coins themselves are not the same because of the lack of fungibility, to where they're not tradable one for one because of their prior histories. And then on another thing was, I just tweeted a moment ago how the institutions that are coming in now, the Michael Saylors, all those individuals, they have virgin coins. They have coins that are freshly minted, so they can store those and use those as hedges and wealth, transfer mechanisms. But your average person who wants exposure, they're forced to go out any way they can, and they run the risk of running into tainted coins. So I think as a part of this, all these entities, government bodies, they're about to come in with some regulation and use the excuse that ransomware attacks, they're being paid in this particular technology. We got to clamp down. We got to definitely see who does what. So next year, come tax season time, there's going to be more than just a question. They're going to say, we need an address. I think I mentioned in Sweden or Finland or Sweden, the central bank has already asked for, they need an address. They need one address that you withdraw from in order to have your transactions or whatever completed. But all Bitcoins are the same, and I'm happy that you are taking it down that road, my friend. So it's good to hear, man. I'm not the only one out here, because most of the people in the crypto space, they don't tend to go down this route, because everybody's more so concerned with making profits now and having their bags grow so they can get Lambos and all that other stuff like that. But they're not realizing they're contributing to this transition without opposition, and that bothers me. But I don't think I'm the only one. So
I saw JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, they did a whole, like I said, like a love letter about Ethereum. But in the letter, they were saying, they were also talking positive about Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And what they said was that previously they were against it. And the reason that they're now for it is because before it couldn't be considered a monetary asset, because no institutions were involved in it. So the banks weren't using it. So they couldn't consider it an asset before. So they didn't think it was something positive. But now there's more institutional involvement. It's definitely becoming, this and that. And it's like, wasn't it the whole thing about like escaping the banking system?
Unbank yourself, be your own bank, all that stuff. Yeah. All that stuff was very prominent earlier on. But yeah, where'd it go?
Yeah, I just don't know why we need to sit and listen to what the banks have to say about where we should be putting our money, when the goal was to evade them or to move away from the banking system. And without privacy coins, I don't think that that's really going to be possible, and anonymous transactions. I mean, they say, and I don't think that event happened as they report it to us. I think that was all about crypto. All about crypto. And because they said that they paid that within a couple hours,
four hours, but we didn't hear about it till Thursday in the mainstream news. So what happened between that? What were they doing? Anyway, go ahead.
Sorry. They were the ones that shut it down. I mean, it's not like the company shut it down. They just had their information and said that we're going to, hold you out of your computer till you pay it. They paid it almost immediately. And then the CEO comes out and then they disbanded and gave a press release. What hacker group, an anonymous hacker group that just pulled off a major supposed nation-moving event, is going to go and have press releases? Oh, we lost control of our blog, all this stuff, so we're just going to completely disappear like we never existed. Like, what? You have a blog? And you blog about what? About ransomware? I don't know.
Got an entire foundation.
I don't think they ever existed. I think that this was all about
it's a setup, man.
Yeah, making Bitcoin out to be the big scary monster. Oh, it's anonymous. Bitcoin isn't anonymous.
Yeah.
You took a picture of your face, showed them your ID. Most people, average people, that's how they bought Bitcoin, with their bank account. And that's why so many banks are moving in. You buy with your bank account, you have KYC already. Yeah. They want to really whittle it down so that they can have control, and then they will have total control on us. It's a very dangerous situation. I think that without Bitcoin ATMs, and even speakeasy style Bitcoin ATMs in the future, where you know a guy who knows a guy who has one, that it's going to become very, very difficult to do anything, even with crypto, without, especially Bitcoin, without them knowing what you're doing or who you are. And the only solution they have is to really paint all of these things as dangerous and scary and dark and criminal.
Yeah. And watch this. So a part of that, they're building up the narrative now that the sector is too unregulated. We need to come in and provide stability, and they provide stability for the fact that they're building financial products on top of it, the ETFs and all the funds and the futures. And if they build an infrastructure to make it a valid investment tool for them, meaning the uber wealthy individuals, to get in to park their money during this transfer, they're going to definitely say that we cannot have our average investor. We can't have you guys taking the risk. We need to regulate it. And so therefore, it's safer to go through a regulated exchange or a regulated approved commercial bank. You can go down to your local credit union or your JP Morgan, you can do your app there. You can get it and they can custodian it for you. So they're going to transition into the system so you can trust it. So you don't have any tainted coins. And so that's how they're going to, and it's so obvious, but it is what it is. And it's sad, but hopefully people wake up and realize that, this also is one of the ways that they're dismantling our current rights of privacy, because cash is going to be removed once they execute all this.
This is why gold and silver is not the enemy of crypto. Mm-hmm. Gold and silver is absolutely essential, because if we have an all digital, like the Fed now, mm-hmm. an all digital central bank digital currency, mm-hmm. you're not going to be able to sell your crypto anonymously. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to sell it into digital dollars that is run by a system operated by the Federal Reserve, where they will know exactly who did what. Mm. But if you have gold and silver, which is money and is accepted all around the world, mm-hmm. There's somebody everywhere in the world that knows gold is money, silver mm-hmm. is money, and that they will exchange it for you. And especially among a lot of the liberty leaning crowd that has moved into and kind of absorbed the Bitcoin idealism, where they think that it's just going to be the bank killer, and they've really accepted it. They also love gold and silver, and it's mm-hmm. not competing. They need to complement each other, because there's your untraceable money. What if we didn't have cash? And, mm-hmm. But gold is money, food is money, silver mm-hmm. is money. And a barter system may be the only option to be able to avoid some of these things. And like you said, the dollar, if people understood what's happening in the dollar right now and what's happening on a daily basis in mm-hmm. regards to the value of a dollar, we've been like a roller coaster with the dollar value the past 2 weeks, and it's been mostly down, but every once in a while there's a crazy jump up day, mm-hmm. and people are worried about what's happening in the crypto markets. The dollar is doing the exact same thing. If they sold you the dollar as a crypto, and you say, okay, well, 1% of the owners own 30% of all that is in existence. Yeah. There's an unlimited supply cap. They can create an unlimited supply. You would think, what a joke. They would call it a meme coin. Yeah. Nobody would want to buy it. They'd say they're just trying to rip you off. And they could just create an unlimited supply, and it goes to that top 1% mm-hmm. all the time. And, it's a scam. And eventually I think that people will need to find some way to escape the inflation that's going to be coming.
All right.
They're going to turn wherever they can, and it could be crypto. It's happening in other countries, but what other countries they respond with a very strong hand against crypto when that starts happening, like Turkey, China right now. Every country that has a failing currency, they're forced to, because their competition happens to be mm-hmm. what is newly, this new technology. And so I want to show you this little visual aid. I love to use graphics, visual aids. As you see, I got stuff popping up because I touched on this stuff for myself, my little rants. But I want to show you this here. Let me know your thoughts on this. So this is what we're up against here. It has taken 19 administrations to completely destroy the purchasing power of the Federal Reserve note. And so, Frank, you may not be aware, but I like to distinguish between a Federal Reserve note and a dollar. A mm-hmm. dollar in the form of a certain defined weight of silver. That's how I tend to stick with it as best I can. And then I call a Federal Reserve note what it is. It's a debt instrument. So this is what we've been given. And so I have Biden face falling off the cliff, because he's going to be the last president under this current Federal Reserve note structure. And I want to transition that one into the CBDCs. So Jerome Powell gave a 5-minute introduction, which on May 20th, and I'll never forget that. I tell people here, don't never forget that, because that's the date that our entire monetary structure was turned upside down, with the announcement of a white paper ultimately coming this summer for our public opinion on how it can better complement the Federal Reserve note. So give me your thoughts, man. Nobody's surprised about this, but how does this link with stable coins, and how will that world exist in your opinion? Well, the dollar's not stable right now. We've already left the station. It's already left the station. It's the volume of money printing. Like, I went into my bank the other day, and I said this on our channel, but I went into my bank the other day, and I was telling them, making a joke, saying, "Don't get too excited, girls. I'm putting this money in to pay the government." Mm-hmm. And they were like, "Oh, that sucks." And I said, "Yeah." And then I talked about the differences, how, a couple years ago they were like, "Oh, we'll extend the deadline, we'll extend the deadline, we'll extend the deadline." And it pushed me like so far back. And I was like, wow, they don't even really, you know, care or something. But then all of a sudden they're like, this is the deadline. Pay your taxes now. Like everybody must pay.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's a little different. And so, and they said, well, we got to pay for all of this spending. We got to pay for all this spending. I said, why don't we just print more? Let's just print a whole bunch more. And they said, well, the dollar has to be backed by something. I think that maybe we need to audit Fort Knox. And I was thinking, what is it, Fort Knox anymore? But just like a historical site that people go and tour sometimes, like Fort Knox is not holding the money anymore. If the Federal Reserve is the one creating and managing our money supply, and I told them we should audit the Fed, and they didn't understand why. They said, well, people get searched going in and out of the Fed. I said, well, we got to audit the Fed. They're the ones creating the money supply. And once you audit the Fed, it becomes publicly available. People see it and they go, oh my God, like, I can't believe that they're distributing dollar bills throughout the entire world, and to who knows who.
And that's the thing about it. It's been more units, monetary units created than we probably would even be able to understand. And are you familiar with Dr. Skidmore, who did the audit from Michigan State, who come up with the number of 21 missing trillion based upon all the entities that were created? And that's what he was able to put together based upon a little bit of information he gathered. So imagine the stuff he can't get access to. And so there's no telling how many digital units or paper is out here. But it's sad to see this happen this way. But what are your thoughts? When is the CBDC coming? When is it going to be the EUSD, the Fed coin, Treasury coin? What do you think is coming and when?
Well, part of the reset is that the U.S. will no longer be the world's leading superpower. And so the only way to manage that is to diminish the role of the U.S. dollar. And we're seeing a big de-dollarization because the dollar makes us king of the world. And we have enforced that brutally. We've enforced that brutally. We go in and we will remove kings or any elected official in other nations who decide not to sell their oil in dollar. The petrodollar status has been the king of the world, everything. And we've even been advancing and conquering oil producing nations for how long? It looked like the US had a secret plot to take over all of the world's oil. And they were just like telling it, oh, there's these guys, we got to go protect the people there. And they're like slowly going into Libya and all these different places all over. And I can't even mention all the names because these are all hot button words. But then all of a sudden they just stop and they're saying the US will no longer be the world's leading superpower. So I wonder, who are they gathering all that oil for? And they're going against oil. It's like, were they like trying to gather this all so that they could do this push? I don't know. Maybe they changed their mind, but either way, the Treasury is telling the G20, which are the 20 richest countries in the world, to start buying SDRs. And SDR is a currency that was created by the IMF and the central banking empire to exchange between the other central banks. Right now, the dollar serves that purpose. The dollar serves about 67%. It's down to around 60%.
I think it's just dropped below 60 within his last year. So it's But the SDR would fill up a major order, not all of it, but it's a major order that the dollar usually fills, which is the special drawing rights. They call it the basket of currencies that they measure the dollar against, but it's essentially most of the world's largest currencies is supposed to be what backs it. And so the SDR would already take away from the dollar's use there. I think that there is a dollar sabotage underway. And we have Janet Yellen, who used to work for the Federal Reserve, who is really championing this. And never would a U.S. Treasury Secretary ever tell the world's richest countries to stop using the dollar. Never. And so I think that moving forward, I don't know why they don't have a digital dollar yet. Why would you allow the yuan, the digital yuan, to come out? I mean, like they've been working on this for 5 years. I was talking about this years ago. Bernard was talking about it at the Fed and saying about the Fed Now system where everybody would have an app and you could make all your payments and like that. And so why didn't they do it already? I don't know. So let me add to that real quick. So my personal opinion, I think the project's already done. The digital dollar project out of MIT. Everything always links back to MIT. Even, Michael Saylor and all those individuals, it all go back to MIT. So they got some stuff already worked out. It hasn't been released yet. And I think this last glitch that took place earlier in the year, if I'm not mistaken, when there was the payment processing system went down for that 24-hour period, mysteriously, I personally suspect that was when some things were cut on behind the scenes. So it's ready, I believe. It's just not in our hands because they want to see the destruction of America a little bit more, so that the people will so people will be ready and willing, and without it'll be a hands down congressional improvement all the way around. Nobody, left or right, will be able to say they can't roll this out because the world would need it at that point. So they need more pain ultimately. So I think that's how it's coming. But then how would you say this SDR, you think it's going to be a digital version, and are they going to incorporate, something inside of that to provide more stability to it? Because the dollar share will probably decrease. Then they're going to have to add something tangible in there, wouldn't you say, or no?
I don't know if it's digital or not. The way it works is that these countries need to hold a reserve of dollars. They need to buy dollars at exchange rates and hold them, because if they want to transact among themselves, they transact in dollars. So if the central banks are no longer holding those reserves, because let's face it, the countries aren't the ones holding strategic reserves, it's the banks.
Yeah.
So if they're holding it for their interactions between each other, then they're already no longer using the dollar as a world reserve currency. Right. And so it's not all the transactions yet, but I think that's going to significantly weaken it. I don't know if it'll be digital. I think that when in the beginning of this crisis, Powell said something very telling about this whole digital thing, and they always say they're doing everything to help us and to fix us and to help reach people in need, because he said we want to start thinking about the Fed now as a way to deliver permanent stimulus payments during times of crises when people are in need. So when they sent out the checks initially, they were saying they were working on a digital dollar, or the Fed now, so that they could deliver stimulus. And I'm thinking, what stimulus? Like, you're talking about stimulus in the future. And but now we kind of see that this is the permanent path,
permanent, ongoing. Yeah.
And they're establishing it, and they're going to sell it to us by saying this is how you'll get your stimulus or your UBI, that you'll get it delivered to you directly from the Federal Reserve. And so people, of course, will need it to get their payments. And the most of the nation is poor. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, so well before this, as we started off in the very beginning, we were experiencing economic collapse well before then, because you look at the amount of poverty on the coastal lines. Homelessness has been an issue. Poverty is always there. The wages never kept up with the amount of monetary base that's been pumped out there. The CEO's CEO compensation is boom 60% in comparison to the labor force. So it's already been there. It's just a matter of now things are being exposed. And as they say, you never let a good crisis go to waste. And so now, and to your point about the future of the dollar, as you were talking, I was thinking about the fact that the globalists and those who are orchestrating all this, they've already deliberately put the nail in the coffin for the dollar, because if the dollar was basically the petrodollar system was backing it, as well as faith and confidence, the military, all stuff like that, backing it, they've said they want net zero carbon emissions by 2030. So that right there was the end of it. So they have to get away from all the petrol related stuff to go green, clean energy. So that's the future. So the dollar won't be needed then if they go that way. So they're going to need a unified, interoperability type process coin or some crap. So yeah, it's interesting. But the Build Back Better plan, so let's talk about the future they want to build for us. Like, as far as if they succeed between now and say 2025, what type of world are you anticipating seeing? If they win, or God forbid, we the people don't stand up and push back to the best of our ability, what type of future are we looking for, man?
If you really look at a lot of these plans, you'll realize they're all the same plan. The New Deal, all those things, they're all the same exact plan, the same exact people pushing the same exact things. And it's not like it's our leaders' plan.
Right.
This is the true leaders of the world that have created these things. And I think it's extremely unpopular. I think that there's the fact that it's pretty clear the people are overwhelmingly against them, and it's growing. So it's growing more and more. And I don't know what it could look like, because there's the other extreme too, is that there's people who are growing almost like militant in their desire to help complete this vision on the other side. And I think the divide is better. I think that I love that in America we have states' rights so far, and that people are just abandoning their cities, abandoning their fiefdoms and their they would be losing seats, but of course they're lying and saying they're adding population and they're losing millions of people. But I think that as people are moving, and I think that I saw this trend, I thought it was just a natural phenomenon, but I actually started to think that this may be the answer, because they've established to control us in like these mega cities and these places, and they have control at all of these powerful positions in all these places. But if people relocate, and we did an episode about rush hour being in the suburbs in the afternoon in Florida now. It's not on the highways at the end of 95. So that means that there's so many people that have moved out and that it's like reshaping things. And that's how you create new cities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it used to be companies or corporations or industries and everything's built around it. The jobs mean people move there. They need more houses. There's like a whole thing. So you need to have real economic activity happening to develop new cities, communities, and towns. And I think that we have the potential to start seeing that happening in a lot of the free states, where these little rural areas will start not being rural. They'll start being small cities, medium cities. And then you establish new people that need to be elected and new people that need to be there. So it kind of like shifts the power base. For the longest time, New York City's been the financial capital of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And now that the banks are moving south to Wall Street, you see all the trade, all the food was produced in the South. It needed to flow through the ports of New York. If you notice that the ports at a lot of the states that stood up against them before, they're all Navy bases, because those ports were no longer allowed to trade. All the food and everything really went out through New York until we started going west or east, but then it was California. So all the money has been built up in New York and California because everything was flowing through there. But now you have the banks have left.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have people leaving California, going to Texas, and if they lean the other way, going to some parts of Arizona or the suburbs around. They don't leave California. That's good. That's good. But we have like this reconfiguring of power happening. The people that are moving have the wealth, have the money, they have the will to remain free. And I think that kind of like I described this on our Telegram, but like a herd of buffalo, they have their young with them, they have their old with them, and they're kind of defenseless.
Mm-hmm.
But the strength of the buffalo would be the herd. Mm-hmm. And when the wolves come out, they try to scare them and get them to run and break their herd. But, you know, the most effective is when the strongest among them are able to form like a wall, shoulder to shoulder, and the young and the old and the weak are in the middle of them. And if they can break them and scatter them, then it works. But if they unite in that sense and they can form a defense, then there's not really any of those predators that can harm them. Mm-hmm. In fact, they're in great danger because those are a powerful and attentive beast at that point, and they have pretty much lost their meal. The only hope they have is to really pick us off individually. But I think that what we're seeing is really, they didn't expect it. I don't think they expected people to just pick up and move. And I think they're going to even try to restrict some state-to-state travel. Yeah. They're going to have to, because this could really blow their whole plan. And that means if it could blow their plan, then we need to do it. We need to leave the cities where they have the control, where they've set up, because they said there's going to be 3 things that the future will look like. It's going to be everyone living in mega cities,
mm-hmm.
and it will just be a complete, just barren land everywhere else. Everyone living in mega cities, and it has to be that way if they want to control us.
Yeah.
And then there was one where another one was related to cities, and it would be global control, global governing. And then the third one was that the markets would rule, and that corporations would be broken off, and there would be independent economies, like kind of like the direction we're really going.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's definitely the better position, is where we no longer are funding our own demise and our enemies, and just let them deal with the tax issues when you push 1 million people out of your city.
Yeah.
Let them. How can they continue to be our enemy, be so powerful, if we, the people, the power leaves and no longer is under their control? And that kind of movement, I think, is the only hope we have. And then if we're together and united, and the freedom-loving people of America are, together, then eventually the people in charge there will even change.
Mm-hmm.
they will change to be more exactly what represents us.
Yeah.
And that's a problem for them.
Right.
And that's the solution.
It'd be good to finally get some people that represent we the people, as opposed to lifelong politicians, spend 30, 40 years representing special interests and all that other stuff, as opposed to people who actually live in the community and have the best interest of the community at heart, because we're a part of it. So we can go, man. So we're about that 50-minute mark, and I'm definitely enjoying myself. And we didn't get to no questions. So I want to, get ready to dial back a little bit. I want to be respectful of your time. And so one of my models here on RTD is to try to leave with some things, some nuggets for people to consider on what they can actually do. And so for me personally, I look at things in a three-way format. There's the natural, the practical, and then there's a spiritual element. And so I believe, not sure where you stand on that, but as far as the spiritual element of things, we're in a spiritual warfare behind the scenes between two different clashing kingdoms. I go in deep, whatever, on my little rants, but natural, spiritual, and the natural, spiritual, and the what other one I said? I forgot what it is. But all three of them are very important. From the spiritual standpoint, basically your faith, being strong in your faith and what you believe, and sticking to your guns when things get tough, and riding or dying with it. And then the natural element is basically doing the best you can to prepare accordingly. Like, things are happening around you. You have to now seek extra information to better your circumstances. And then the practical is basically taking all that and actually applying it in your day-to-day life. So that's my way of telling people, how to better brace for the changes ahead. And the model is get your weight up financially with silver, whatever. Anyway, so give us some things that you want to leave people with, as far as some things that they can do, practical steps, or whatever it is that you want to focus on that can get people encouraged and get them moving in the right direction.
Yeah, no, a lot of people won't like this, but Jesus Christ is God. And I know a lot of people won't like this.
Hey, it works. So, but see, the thing in this community, it works because you ain't the only one to say that. So I didn't know where you stood, so I want to, because So I just kept it neutral. But I appreciate you. Go ahead, Phil. Go ahead.
And I mean, if you look, it's just like it kind of seems like it's what it's all about. It's what it's all really about. What they're focusing on, what they're planning, what they're building, the society they're building, the forces they're building. They're looking for people that really, I mean, they're identifying us as dangerous people. We're right on the list there. And so obviously, if that's who you are, then you just got to be firm regardless of what you face. When the society is drifting so far away into lunacy, they're going to hate you. And don't be worried about being loved. Don't be worried about being liked by, all these people. All the people that you think are really just like losing it right now. And you look at them like, how could you live like that? It's because they're desperate about what people think about them. They're desperate to be approved by society. And the people controlling whatever societal norms are right now are the ones that are insane. So obviously you're going to have to go through a whole bunch of crazy stuff and completely change everything that you believe in to be able to fit in. You're going to have to buy the products they want you to buy, all these things. And if you can get firm in me, that's what helps me a lot. And what actually helps me to break through a lot of this a lot is because I don't care what people think about me. I don't care what they have to say. And I really look to Jesus for the truth. And I mean, you asked me about it, and that enables me not to be so caught up and because you're really going to get carried away. Yeah, you're going to get carried away, and they want you to be, and they want you to get depressed, and they want you to get demoralized, and they want you to get broken down. And I think that as far as preparing, one thing that everybody should be doing is learning to grow their own food, learning to keep their own animals. The CDC is trying, I don't want to say that word.
Right.
They're trying to get everybody to be afraid of backyard chickens. They're trying to get everybody to be afraid of farming. They're coming out with these ideas, telling you how, growing meat is just destroying the world. And so if you want to eat meat, learn how to hunt, learn how to turn animal into meat in your fridge, which is a process, and it takes time to learn. So if you want to be preparing to do something, learn these things and learn to grow food, because the time to prepare is looks like it's already over. I mean, there's still some time. There's still some time, and we have some checks and balances that are holding temporarily, but we got like a dam here with holes all through it. And you got to realize this thing is going to break through, and they're not going to stop, and they're not going to stop, and they're not going to stop. And they keep pushing this issue. They are determined, and they've invested a lot of money, a lot of time, all of their lives for a long time to establish this. And so if you want to eat, figure out how to do that. I love what they're doing in Detroit. And they, how you got people even in the hood tilling up some of these old abandoned houses that they tore down. And now they're learning agrarian roots again, because those people don't got to be in poverty. What is poverty if everybody's obsessed about the dollar? Yeah, there's poverty. But if you got food, if you know how to feed yourself, if you know how to take care of your family without having to look to the government, that is wealth. That is wealth. And anybody can do this, and learning how to do this is a process. So I would get started on that. And then what was the third question you said?
That was pretty much it. I just mentioned the practical, natural, spiritual elements is what, so something from that, and you pretty much, you hit on it, man. So, Frank, man, I appreciate you for joining me, man. I had a blast. It was great to connect with somebody who, see things from the perspective that we do over here as well. So thank you for sharing your insights, and didn't get to any questions like I wanted to, but because I had too many of my own, but hopefully I'll have you on back in the future if you're interested in joining us again and get some questions answered or whatnot. And other than that, for those that are tuning in, I hope you guys enjoyed the opportunity to connect with Mr. Frank Walker here from Silver Report Uncut. So definitely go subscribe to him if you haven't already. And other than that, Frank, any last thoughts you want to leave us with?
Well, yeah. And if you're on Telegram or just hearing about it, it's just t.me/Silver Report is our Telegram channel. I mentioned that.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, thank you. So hold on, Frank. I'm going to say goodbye to these guys, and I'll see you in a second.
All right.
All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and hope you guys enjoyed this Sunday afternoonish RTD Q&A. Definitely give it a thumbs up. Share this information if you enjoyed it. Definitely go subscribe to Frank and as well as the Telegram. And then we'll see you back this upcoming week. Be blessed. Be safe. Peace.